So, what if you could just grab a shovel and dig, not just a hole for a pool, but straight down and you just didn't stop? You go right through the crust, the mantle, the core, and out the other side of the planet. It's the kind of thing you'd think about as a kid. If I dig deep enough, I'll pop out in China, right? But let's actually follow that thought. Let's see where it goes. And the first place it goes is to a really weird number, 42 minutes. Because in a perfect, frictionless, physics class version of this, that's how long it would take you to fall from one side of the Earth to the other. You jump in, accelerate like crazy all the way to the core, then slow down as you rise up the other side, coming to a perfect stop right at the surface on the opposite end. 42 minutes, there and back. It's like you're a human yo-yo on a planetary string. And the weirdest part? That 42 minutes is the same no matter where you dig the hole. Pole to pole, or at some weird angle. The trip always takes the same amount of time. It's just a neat little rule of gravity for a uniform sphere. But of course, we don't live in a physics class. We live here. And to earn that 2-minute yo-yo ride, you first have to survive the journey. So you start digging, through the crust. That's the part we live on. It's about as thick, proportionally, as the skin on an apple. You'd pass through layers of rock, maybe some buried cities from a distant future, fossil layers, all that. This part is at least familiar. But then you hit the mantle, and here's where the solid ground beneath our feet starts to feel like an illusion. The mantle isn't liquid lava, it's solid rock, but it's so hot and under so much pressure that it can flow, like extremely thick plastic. Think of the whole continents as slow-moving rafts on top of this viscous, hot goo. The temperature here is already thousands of degrees. Anything we have would melt, or rather, just vanish, almost instantly. But you keep going. Deeper. You hit the outer core. Now, this is liquid. A churning, spinning sea of molten iron and nickel. It's as hot as the surface of the sun. This liquid metal dynamo is what generates Earth's magnetic field. It's the reason we have a protective shield against solar radiation. You'd be falling through the engine room of our planet. And at the very center, the inner core, this is the final surprise. It's a ball of iron under so much pressure, like 3.5 million times the pressure at the surface, that despite being even hotter than the outer core, it's forced into a solid crystalline state. A glowing iron crystal, hotter than the sun, sitting at the heart of everything. Realistically, you'd be a wisp of plasma long before you got here. But let's say you've got some magical protection. A perfect, indestructible tube holding back the heat and the crushing pressure. You've solved the impossible. Now you can take your 2-minute fall, right? Well, here's the next problem. The Earth is spinning. You don't feel it, but at the equator, the surface is whipping around at over 1,000 miles an hour. As you go down, the walls of your tunnel are moving at different speeds. So, as you fall straight down toward the center of mass, the tunnel is sort of twisting away from you. You wouldn't just fall, you'd be scraped relentlessly against the western wall of the tunnel. It would be a constant, grinding smear all the way down. Not a fall, but a brutal, spiraling slide into a meat grinder. Okay, fine. More magic. Let's make the tunnel frictionless too. A perfect, spinning-proof tube. Now we jump. And we run into the final, and kind of beautiful, problem. The air. You're digging a hole 8,000 miles deep. That's a column of air 8,000 miles high. The pressure at the bottom, at the core, would be astronomical. The air wouldn't be a gas anymore. It would be a supercritical fluid, denser than water, a toxic, crushing soup. But it gets weirder. That entire column of air would have its own gravity, pulling it toward the center of the Earth, and it would want to slosh, it would oscillate. You'd have pressure waves screaming up and down this tube, with winds and forces that make our worst hurricanes look like a gentle breeze. You'd be falling through a screaming, crushing, oscillating piston of atmosphere. The very thing that gives us life, scaled up to a planetary level, becomes an inescapable, violent prison. So no, we will never dig a hole through the Earth. The fantasy shatters against heat, pressure, spin, and finally, just the air. But by walking all the way to the end of that impossible thought, you see the planet for what it really is. It's not a dormant rock, it's a spinning, layered, dynamic engine, a violent, metallic heart wrapped in a flowing mantle, all encased in a thin, brittle shell that we call home. We're not living on a planet, we're living on the skin of one. And that thin, fragile shell, with its bubble of air and just right conditions, is the only reason any of this is a thought experiment at all, and not our reality.